Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat, in which we would look at the forecasted financial statements FFS, which is the pro forma. And we are using the pro forma here to solve for the additional funds needed AFN. Now, in the prior session, we looked at the AFN, the additional funds needed, and we looked at a shortcut formula. In this session, what we will do is we will build the pro forma income statement, and we're gonna scale things, and the driver will be sales to figure out the additional retained earnings first. Then we would solve for the additional funds needed through a plug, and you're gonna see what that means. Then I will at the end reconcile the two, the shortcut and the formula, and explain why the equation and the pro forma differ slightly. Then we will handle this circular loop and tie the statements together. Those are the objectives for today. We're going to start by looking at the percentage of sales and what does it mean, because everything's going to be driven by sales, and from sales we're going to scale everything else. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com.
My AI turns any lecture into a complete study system. You can create summary table, formulas, and example from each lecture. Flashcard builds from the lesson itself. A quiz build on the lesson. And as a bonus, convert any lecture into a portable short audio on the go. So it helps you with the retention. No noise, no generic responses, just clarity based on that specific lecture. Don't just watch. Interact, test yourself, and retain the material using Farhat AI. Now go to FarhatLectures.com now and see how the AI can help you understand, practice, and retain the material.
So the big picture is something like this. The forecasted financial statement method assumes that most operating accounts move with sales. What are operating accounts? Operating accounts are the accounts that are used to operate the business. Like what? Sales, of course. What goes up with sales? Account receivable. What's affected by sales? Inventory. What's affected if inventory is affected? What's affected? Accounts payable. What else is affected? Payroll, accrual, operating expenses. And sometime you might need to have additional assets. So we're going to start with a sales forecast and scale the sales-driven accounts, whatever they are, and carry the discretionary financing forward. It means debt and equity will be moved forward without movement. Then we're going to find the gap and we'll deal with that gap. We're going to see what I mean in a moment. So we're going to scales with sales, the receivable, the inventory, the fixed asset if needed, payables, accrual, any operating expenses. We're going to hold constant. Notes payable, long-term debt paid, and capital, because those we assume they don't change. Then we are going to figure out the retained earnings, which is we're going to take the old retained earnings, add to it net income minus the dividend. Then after all said and done, we're going to come up with the projected asset side of the balance sheet. And remember, the liabilities and equity, we're going to keep constant. We're going to keep the same. And when we do so, we're going to find there's a difference, a plug that we need to figure out. And that plug will be the additional funds needed. So this is the big picture. So the plug will close the gap, so the statement will balance, because you cannot just stop at sales. After you compute sales, we will compute the pro forma balance sheet, and when the pro forma balance sheet does not balance, the number we're looking for, the figures we're looking for are the financing figures. And to process this, we're going to look at a 6-step procedure. Step 1, you guessed it. We're going to have to forecast sales, because sales will be the driver for everything else. Then we are going to set percent of sales and determine which account varies and which account stays fixed. Again, we talked about the accounts that varies, which are the operating account. And once we figure out net income, we're going to add net income minus the dividend to retained earnings, compute the new retained earnings. Then we're going to look at the balance sheet first, past balance sheet, and we're going to carry the discretionary financing forward. That means debt and equity will stay the same for now. Then we're going to solve for AFN. Everything that I told you here was on the prior slide, which is asset minus the financing in place, which is debt and equity, equal to the plug-in. And this is the picture, and we're going to see that picture using numbers shortly, but this is the picture that's on this slide. But you will see it using numbers much clearer, and we're gonna finance and recheck everything. Watch for that feedback effect. You're gonna see what I mean in a moment. So to start an example, we're gonna look at BrightPath. They manufacture bicycles, and this is what their balance sheet at year 0 at the beginning of the year looks like. They have cash of 300,000, account receivable, inventory, net fixed asset, accounts payable, accrual, notes payable, long-term debt, and common stock. Those are we will hold constant. The other account, we are going to say that they are going to change with sales. For now, year 0 snapshot, sales is 10 million, net income is 1.05, the net margin is 10.5, the payout ratio is 40%. It means B is the retention ratio. If we're paying out 40, we are keeping 60. Another picture of assets in relationship to sales, which is the accounts that will change with sales. For example, cash is 3% of sales. Sales for this example, we are assuming sales is 10 million, and we are assuming sales is 10 million, and we're figuring out how big are those accounts relative to sales. Okay, for example, account receivable is 12% in relationship to sales, inventory is 15. Notice net fixed assets. So the larger this amount, the more it's going to affect. That's why we are doing so. So those are the express things as a percentage of sales, and we're going to assume that BrightPath is at full capacity. Full capacity means what? It means if we need to scale, fixed asset will scale with sales because we need more fixed asset. If we have excess capacity means we have plenty of fixed asset to operate. Fixed asset will stay flat, and we need less funding. Additional funding needed will shrink because we don't need this. Okay, so remember, the discretionary financing will be notes payable, long-term debt, common stock. Those don't scale. They're held at year 0 until the financing is decided, because we're going to be using those accounts to finance that shortage. Now let's take a look at the pro forma income statement. So this is the base income statement, year 0. We have sales of 10 million, operating cost of 8, depreciation of 400,000, operating EBIT, which is sales minus those two, 1.6 million. Interest expense is 200,000. Then we have pre-tax income, which is operating income minus interest expense of 1.4. We are assuming a 25% tax rate. Taxes of 35%. Net income is 1,050,000. Now we are assuming that sales will grow at 20%. It means we're going to take the figures on the income statement, multiply them by 1.2. Why 1.2? Because we need to take the base and add to it 20%. If we multiply them by 20%, for example, if we take 10 million times 20%, it's 2 million. We're going to have to take the 2 million, add it to the 10 million to come up with the 12. So that's why we multiply, because many students ask me, why multiply by 1.2? The 1 is for the 10 million. So if we multiply 1.2, the projected sales is 12 million. The projected operating cost, 9.6. The projected depreciation, 480. Operating income is a computation, 1,920,000. We are going to assume interest expense is the same, and this is important. This is an assumption that's going to come back, and we have to clarify later, but I want you to make a note of it, mental note. Pre-tax income is operating income minus interest expense, taxes of 25%, left with net income of 1,290,000. Remember, we said this company pays 40% in dividend, so we're going to pay to the investors 516, and 60% retained earnings, 774,000. Now we figured out one number on the balance sheet, which is retained earning. The prior retained earning was 2.8 million, and we're going to add 774, and here we're looking at this retained earnings. So now we figure out this number, and remember, the other numbers that are not in this box, they grow at 20%. So here's the projected balance sheet. Remember, the numbers that are related to sales, they grow at 1.2%. We're going to take them, multiply them by 1.2, and when we do so, assets are 9.6 million. We took cash. The cash was 300,000. We scale it at 1.2. Same thing with account receivable. Everything scaled at 1.2, including fixed asset, because we said we don't have capacity. We don't have excess capacity. We did the same thing for the liabilities that changes with sales. We kept the financing, the debt, and the equity constant, and we just computed retained earnings, the new one. Now, when we look at assets, we have 9.6 million. When we look at the financing in place, we have 9 million and 19, which is equity and liabilities. There's a shortage of 586. And this is the AFN. We are looking for the additional funds needed. We computed this through the pro forma financial statement starting with sales. Now, if we take this company and we compute it using the shortcut, what do we get if we get the shortcut? The shortcut, remember, we learned about the shortcut in the prior session. So if you don't know what I'm doing now, you can stop, go to the prior session. Basically, we look at the capital intensive ratio, which is 80% of the asset change with sales. So if sales is changing by 2 million, we need 80% of new assets. This is the funds needed. Then the liabilities that change with sales are 2 million, and that's 12%. Remember, that's the free financing, the accounts payable. Remember, that's minus. Then we have the retained earnings, how much retained earning will contribute. It's the profit margin, 10.5 times sales times S1. Remember, we use in this formula S1 times B, the retention ratio. So when we compute additional funds needed for this example using the shortcut, we'll come up with approximately 604,000. Now you might be saying, why there's a difference between the two figures? And the difference, if we look at the gap is 18,000, which is equal to the difference in the addition to retained earnings, 774 versus 756. Now why? Well, the shortcut, think of the shortcut, the shortcut takes the lazy fast approach. It assumes that the company keeps on growing at 10.5% for every dollar of sales. It just applies that flat rate for the next year sales. The full pro forma is more careful. If you notice in the pro forma, we rebuild the income statement line by line. And when we do that, we have to be careful that most costs, as you saw, grow with sales. But if you remember interest expense that I told you it's going to come back and hunt us, interest expense does not, because the company hasn't taken out any new loan yet when we computed the pro forma income statement. So as a result, sales went up, but interest expense is the same. Well, what does that mean? It means sales went up, one expense did not change. It means your profit margin goes up to 10.75. If your profit margin goes up, it means what? It means you have more income. If you have more income, it means you have more retained earnings. If you have more retained earnings, you would technically need less additional external funding. So the pro forma is more precise because of that, but we're not done yet, because this is basically taken into account that the interest expense is the same. Now, when we add the interest expense, we have another problem, because when we add the interest expense, that's going to change net income, and we have to redo this again and again. So remember, we need 500. We said we need 586,000. So, okay, great. Let's put on the suit and go to the bank and ask them for this amount of money. So it's okay, great. We're going to give you this amount of money. We're going to charge you 8%. Okay. So if they lend us 586,000, they charge us 8%. The interest expense will be approximately 46,888 something. Let's assume 46,900 for the sake of simplicity. Okay, now if we change the interest expense, hold on a second. Let me go back here. If I change, remember I told you to look at this number, we're going to come back and revisit this number. If I change my interest expense, if I have more negative here, if this goes up, Pre-tax income goes down. I save a little bit on taxes. Yes, I save a little bit on taxes, and my net income will go down. If my net income will go down, my retained earnings overall, if this goes down, if my net income goes down, retained earnings goes down. If retained earnings goes down, I need more financing. So you see that once I factor the interest expense, what that did is basically, if you really think about it, we're in this circular thing. It's like the snake eating its own tail. So net income goes down, retained earning goes down. Now we need more of AFN. Then we have to repeat this process again and again until we figure out what's the exact amount that's gonna make the balance sheet in a sense balance. Well, we have to compute what we called a convergence. We have to and how do we do that? We look at something called the feedback rate. How do we compute the feedback rate first? We're going to take the interest rate we're being charged times 1 minus the tax rate. Because remember, we are being charged 8%, right? 8% we're being charged, but interest is tax deductible. Therefore, if you really think about it, 8% times 0.75, our rate after tax is 6%. What does that mean? It means after tax, the bank charges us 8%, but after we have the tax deduction, we're technically, the net tax effect is 6. So we're really paying 6% on the debt, not 8. So again, we have to change our computation. And of this amount, of that savings, we're keeping, remember, 60%. It means the keep is 0.036, or called the feedback rate. Now what we do is we take the funds that we needed divided by 1 minus that feedback rate will give us 608. And this is exactly what we need. We need 608,000 based on this loan, and everything will balance. We will not have this feedback problem. Because again, once again, please see what's happening here. As soon as we change the interest, we project a new interest, this changes. As soon as this changes, the retained earning will change. Then we need to project something else again and again. But the magic number is 608, and companies will use a software to figure out this as closest thing as possible. And if you work in the real world, this happens all the time, especially when you're balancing balance sheet and there are local and state taxes. It's beyond the scope of this course, but this is a circular problem, happens all the time. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. Maple Ridge Tools is preparing a pro forma income statement. It projects sales of 8 million, net profit margin of 9, and a dividend payout ratio of 35. What's the projected addition to retained earnings? All right, can we solve this problem? We don't have expenses. You don't need expenses. If you have sales of 8 million and we are told from the sales we are going to keep 9% in income, it means our net income is 720,000. So notice 720,000 of one of the answers, and they're trying to trick you. Be careful. They want to know what amount is in addition to retained earnings. You have to be very careful. The addition to retained earning, the dividend payout ratio is 35. If the dividend payout ratio is 35, you have to be careful. The retention is 1 minus 35. If we are paying 35, what we're keeping is 65%. So if we take 720 times 0.65, should give us 468,000. Therefore, the amount that's going to be added to retained earning is 468,000. What should you do now? Whether you are a CPA exam candidate, accounting student, CPA, go to Farhat Lectures. On my website, if you're taking the quiz, you can ask AI to help you explain the topic, explain the correct and incorrect answer, create a similar MCQ. The best investment you can make is invest in yourself, invest in your education, invest in your career, and God bless.